I agree. And I think that narrative is shifting on Jalen Hurts after the game he had this week. You can't say anymore like, oh, the Bills have Josh Allen or the Chiefs have
Jalen
Patrick
Hurts is
Mahomes. Like,
right there.
I get it.
Yeah, it's really weird talking to Kevin Boilard on a Tuesday like this, but with the short week and things jumbling around here, it's trade deadline day. So why not have our local Giants historian, our local Giants expert, Kevin Boilard, in the house today? Kevin, how you feeling? The Giants actually lost the football game.
I know, and it's actually a little bit of a complicated feeling, Jeff, because a lot of people are wanting to dump on the Giants, wanting to, say, I told you so. This is the team they were all along. Say, this changes everything that they should do at trade deadline. But to me, if you told me, I don't care how it happened, if you told me they'd be 6-2 going into the bye, I would have told you you're crazy. So if I'm a Giants fan, and I am, you should be ecstatic. It was 6-2.
Yeah, I didn't expect them to win Sunday, to be honest. Cross country trip. Seattle's a tough game. I thought for sure. I mean, they were the two most surprising teams of the year to me, Giants and Seattle. Atlanta's up there too, but I'm thinking, you know what? If they win, that's gravy for them. I mean, they still should be okay in the long run. But I do have to ask you, win or lose, did you think the Giants should make a significant trade deadline move?
No, I really don't think so. And I'm in the minority for Giants fans there because obviously anyone who's watched a game this year realizes there's a complete dearth of talent at the wide receiver position. And a lot of people want them to go out there and make a splash play, go get somebody. I don't think it has to be at the trade deadline. Don't forget, Odell Beckham Jr. is still out there and he's a free agent. He's probably not going to sign until December. So why do you have to make your move now? Like people are talking about the name that I keep hearing, Jerry Jeudy. And while, yes, Jerry Jeudy would come in and immediately be the best receiver on the team, that's not really saying much. Basically, if you went out and got Jerry Jeudy, you'd have 9 games left to watch him and make a decision then whether you want to extend the 5th-year option on him next offseason. Other guys like Jacoby Myers, another name that's tossed around, I think is probably ceiling-wise a step down from Jerry Jeudy. He's going to be a free agent after this year. That's basically a rental. I don't think the Giants are that good that they can just take a flyer on one of these rental wide receivers, considering their current their history at wide receiver. I think getting rid of the Kadarius Toney, seeing what you can settle out of the Kenny Golladay situation, those are bigger issues. And I'm still on the train that coming out of this season, all the wins you get are gravy. The biggest, most important thing for the Giants to do, and I think Joe Schoen is going to do this, is to have his team in a healthy salary cap position going into 2023.
Which is why I know there's a lot of talk about Brandon Cooks going to the Giants. I've heard that too. It just doesn't seem to make sense. Like, I know Brandon Cooks is probably going to be in another team's uniform at the end of the day. At least that's what it seems like. But, man, I just don't see how a team like the Giants would want to outbid desperate teams right now, like the Packers or a team like that, when they don't really have to do that.
I definitely think, first of all, Brandon Cooks gets traded again. That poor guy, man.
He's a good player.
Get a landing spot anywhere permanently? I thought you finally found a home in Houston. I think that, a lot of this is going to be the way they act at the trade deadline is going to be a testament to the relationship between Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. I'm sure Brian Daboll wants to load his team up with as much talent while they're winning, but Joe Schoen's job is bigger than winning this year. I know that they're doing a good job and that they've exceeded expectation with the talent that he's assembled. And maybe people feel like, Daniel Jones deserves more help around him to make his case as the Giants franchise quarterback. To me, I still don't think, even if you don't go out and get him some, receivers and the season kind of tails off in the end and it's not as hot a start, doesn't finish as hot as it started. I think that, Daniel Jones has still done enough to, in my mind, as long as he stays healthy, to get another chance as the starting quarterback next year, just because I don't think that there's a lot of guys out there in the draft that really spark my interest. So I don't think the rebuild or the retooling and the reloading necessarily has to happen until next offseason. I think anything you get out of this year when you're working with mostly Gettleman's leftovers is gravy.
What do we think the Cowboys are going to do? Because I already said I don't think they're doing anything. That's just not in their DNA.
I mean, I don't know, what would they need, Jeff? Like, what's their weakness? You know,
they just scored 49 points. They trade for Hankins, but they allowed 240 yards the week they traded.
I guess that's true. And there have been games where their defenses look dominant. So it's funny though when they have Dak Prescott in. I feel like they're a completely different team in terms of like their overall complexion. Like, I'm not saying that they're better or worse. I just think that they're a more explosive team. They kind of give up more yards on the other side of the ball. They play more like of a shootout style. When Cooper Rush was the quarterback, it was more like a ball control possession style offense. And that's how the games played themselves out. So it just shows, like, when you have a quarterback like Dak Prescott, who you've invested a lot of money in, you're kind of counting on him to win you games. So you ride and die with a guy like Dak. So do you try to add some more on defense, or do you maybe try to look a little deeper at your game plan?
That's the thing too with the Cowboys, right? You said, what do they need? Well, running back, they're good. Receiver, I think they're more than content with. I mean, do they miss Amari Cooper? Yes, but they still have Michael Gallup. Noah Brown's coming to his own. You're going to get James Washington back at some point. Dalton Schultz is healthy, tight end now. They really like Peyton Hendershot, which kind of shocking to me. I mean, you don't trade for an offensive lineman that much in the middle of the year. You're right. It's like just what's out there.
Yeah, to me, if I'm the Cowboys, I like the way that I've looked, since Dak's return. I know it's not been the best competition, the Lions and the Bears, but to me, I say, hey, I like the way we're heading into the trade deadline. I don't really know, how do we score 56 points instead of 49? I don't really think that's their mind frame. I think that there's other teams out there who are a little more on the cusp. It's more obvious for a team like the Giants where, yeah, same record, 6-2, but they have obvious weaknesses that they could add to. Now they've got the other situation that I've already talked about with the salary cap. So I don't know. Are the Eagles making any more moves, or are they done?
I keep thinking this personally. They could add a running back. I think they'd like to. I just don't know if they really want to give up a premium pick. I guess if you want to call it a premium pick, a 4th-round pick for Kareem Hunt or a 3rd. I don't know if they want to do that. I don't know if they want to get a bidding war with a team like the Buffalo Bills for a guy like that. I think they need a 3rd safety more than anything, and I don't think you have to give up much for that. So I think there might be something else for Howie Roseman. He's working the phones, but I mean they're an aggressive team, and they usually do things at the deadline. But the Robert Quinn move was a pretty aggressive move in and of itself. So they might be done. I don't know. I think they're making calls. I'll just say that. I think there are areas on that team they need to improve, but it's hard. As you know, it's hard to make trades in this league.
Yeah. But let's circle back to what we talked about last week, actually, because you just mentioned the Buffalo Bills and you talked about getting into a bidding war potentially for a running back on the trade market. So tell me then, if the Bills and the Chiefs, first of all, do you still believe that it's Bills and Chiefs and then everyone else? Or are we on the
the Eagles
joined my team and now you believe that the Eagles are the best team in the league?
No, the Eagles are in that conversation. They're in the conversation.
So, all right, before we jump into the Bills, why are the 5-2 Kansas City Chiefs better than the 7-0 Philadelphia Eagles?
Why are they? Patrick Mahomes.
That's it.
Until people knock them off their perch, they're not going anywhere. If Patrick Mahomes or Andy Reid gets hurt, Chiefs are done. But I'll tell you what the Chiefs need: defense. They need a pass rusher. Bottom line, they're going to get Trent McDuffie back. I will say this: this is why I think the Eagles have a better shot at the Chiefs than they do Buffalo, because the Eagles can actually stop somebody. I don't know if the Chiefs can, but the Chiefs' offense just keeps rolling and rolling, and they're getting better.
Well, the Chiefs just traded for Kadarius Toney, so they must have had a lot of confidence in what they had going on offense. So I think the Eagles are better than the 5-2 Kansas City Chiefs. Now back to the Bills, though. You say that the Bills are going to be aggressive going after a running back. Do you think that?
You know what? Devin Singletary's making it tough for him to do that, but
yeah, but if I'm the 6-1 Buffalo Bills, I've been trouncing everyone lately. I'm on one of the longest winning streaks in the NFL right now. Like, why do I need to go out and get someone unless I'm afraid that there's a team out there that's better than me? The Philadelphia Eagles, maybe.
Well, here's why. Because they're desperate for a Super Bowl, and this is their year, Tone. I mean, Kevin, this is their year.
Tone's listening too. I know.
Yeah, I know. Tone,
but he agrees with me. I know he agrees with me. I think that you're really underselling the Eagles right now, and
I'm not underselling them. I am just saying, look, I know the Eagles are a really good team, but I'm not. I look at it this way: you got to compare yourselves to the Bills and the Chiefs. They're the two best, and the Eagles are right up there with them. And I would agree. If you told me the Eagles are better than the Kansas City Chiefs today, I probably would agree with you. But I think to beat those teams in a neutral site, because that's where you're going to play them. You're not playing them this year. Mm-hmm. You have to do something to get a little bit better. I don't see a major weakness in the Bills. I know what the major weakness in the Chiefs is. I think they're going to address it today. But I just don't know. And Tone says he does not fear the Bills and the Chiefs. I would agree with that. I think that's more than fair. I think it. I mean, look, there are three teams above everybody else right now: the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Eagles. Whatever order you want to put them in, but they're the teams I think that should be buying at the deadline. Like, I wanted to talk about the Packers. I don't think they should do anything. They suck. They're a terrible football team. Same with the Bucs. They're terrible too.
Well, to me, that depends on who's running the team. Does their Mark Murphy run the team, or does Aaron Rodgers run the team? Sure, Aaron Rodgers is out there saying, go get me a receiver. But, I don't think that's what they should do. The Packers are a weird team to me. I can't really place them. Obviously, they've completely underwhelmed through the first 8 games of the season. But, I still don't see them as I think is that Dallas's next game? Or don't they play the Packers?
Dallas's next game, right out of the
lot. I don't see that as a sure win for the Cowboys, even though the Cowboys look great lately and the Packers look terrible. So I don't know what that is. It's probably just the Aaron Rodgers factor, back-to-back MVP, reigning MVP. So, how can you count them out? But obviously they don't look like the same team. That's an interesting one. I would definitely be watching them to see what they do at the trade deadline.
That's a divorce that never should happen. Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, because Devontae Adams ain't Devontae Adams over there in Vegas, and Aaron Rodgers,
I don't know what he was thinking either. I mean, I know this has nothing to do with the NFC East, but I don't know what he saw. I know he played with Derek Carr in college, but I don't know if he thought that they were going to be playing college defenses again in the NFL. But I've never been overly impressed with Derek Carr as an NFL quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers. The grass is not greener on the other side if you're Devontae Adams. So I don't know what he was thinking.
I don't know what you're honestly like. Everybody was worried about the Chiefs and Tyreek Hill. Well, Tyreek Hill's balling in Miami, and the Chiefs are balling without Tyreek Hill. So, I mean, clearly it worked out for both parties here. But
that is true. That's true too. I know I just made a casual joke about it, but I am really curious what Kadarius Toney will do in Kansas City.
I am too.
Do you think he'll actually play football?
I don't think he plays football much this year. I think they're looking at
no. He just fakes injuries. That's what he does.
He literally did. He faked injuries. That's the best part about it.
I know. Well, that's the thing is if it was the same GM, I'm talking about the Giants now, Giants perspective, it was the same GM who drafted him. Jordan DeJohnny, your friend from CBS Sports, was trying to be the Giants just gave up a first rounder for a third rounder. It's that only makes sense if the same GM who drafted him just traded him. That was a mistake made by Dave Gettleman that Joe Shane cleaned up. And that's a perfect example of what I think the Giants should be doing at the trade deadline. I think heading into this whole year, they had the idea of themselves as sellers at the trade deadline. And then they never in their wildest dreams would have imagined they'd be sitting here at 6-2. So the decision has become more complicated, and maybe it's not easy to sell the key players. If you were 2-6 as opposed to 6-2, we're talking about it right now. This conversation is, are they trading Saquon Barkley? But now, because of the way that they've played and the way he's played, that just seems off the table. Although I had a dream last night that they traded Saquon.
I think they traded for a first round pick or multiple picks. They could do it.
I think from a Joe Shane perspective, the GM, I think when he saw what the 49ers gave up for Christian McCaffrey, he goes, dang, I wish that was me. I wish that we got that for Saquon Barkley. Because look, I get it. He's playing well. He's doing well this year. But what happens next offseason when you have both him and Daniel Jones, free agents? You can only franchise tag one of them, and then likely you're going to sign him to a big deal if it works out. You don't franchise tag someone hoping it doesn't work out. So I don't know. And you got a running back with an injury history. Like, the fans love him. So they're going to be mad at you no matter what if he's not in a Giants jersey next year. So do you just trade him and get picks for him now? Or do you dump him next offseason and get nothing except for maybe a compensatory pick the following offseason?
What's crazy is, too, you can find another Saquon Barkley in the draft. It's running back, right? Trade him to a team. I'll tell you what, someone will give up a king's ransom for Saquon Barkley.
Also, I'll mention one thing about Saquon Barkley. It has nothing to do with trade, but did you saw the Giants Seahawks game?
Yes.
And then you watched the Browns game last night, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The Giants would have had a better chance to beat the Seahawks, and I'm not blaming this on Saquon, certainly not blaming it, especially with Richie James fumbling 2 punts.
Yeah.
But he needed to run like Nick Chubb.
Yep.
Nick Chubb is a no-nonsense, straight-ahead runner, power runner.
That's been my issue with Saquon. He tries to do too much, and he doesn't have to do this.
But I think there's a lot of teams where it's fine if he wants to run like that. If you're playing against a team that's not going to be smart and stout against the run, like when they played the Bears, he could do whatever he wanted. Daniel Jones could do whatever he wanted because they could not figure out the bootleg. They could not follow the ball. Seattle was so disciplined. They knew exactly how to play the Giants offense and shut them down. That game actually didn't unfold, even though they lost by 2 touchdowns. It didn't unfold that differently than the rest of their games before that. You know, it just Saquon never broke the big run and Seattle never fell for the bootleg or the play fake.
Don't you feel like Jacksonville, in a way, kind of, not that they had the personnel and the talent to do it, but don't you feel like Jacksonville kind of opened up a game plan to kind of stop that? Because they did do it for a little bit, and then the Giants just kind of wore them down as the game went on.
Yeah, I do think that, like, that Jacksonville game was weird because it was one of the only ones where they were winning at halftime and winning at the end of the game, and it felt like they kind of stole that game. You know, so yes, it did kind of feel like that. And I've always kind of felt like that with teams that have these, you know, heavy running attacks with multiple heads, you know, in Giants case, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. A lot of it is just playing disciplined defense. And like, you need one team to kind of put it on film. And then once that team puts it on film, everyone kind of knows, unless you reinvent yourself. And if you're a team like the Giants, it's hard to reinvent yourself because who are you going to reinvent yourself around? You know, Daniel Jones can try to sling the ball around, but he just doesn't have anything right now. So I admire him and I admire the job he's doing. But this game against the Seahawks was the roughest he's looked, and he didn't have an interception. He didn't have a fumble lost. So, but he got sacked like 5 times, and he just couldn't find anywhere to run, and his receivers kind of stink. So, and his top tight ends hurt. So what's he going to do other than try to hand it to Saquon into a stacked box? And Saquon if he never breaks that one big play or 2 big plays, then the game looks a lot different. And then not to mention the turnovers on special teams. So it made sense. It wasn't a head scratcher type of game like that. But to me, I think that if he ran a little harder, I think in the second half, he was figuring it out and kind of like realizing, okay, I'm not going to be able to dance around these guys. There's other games where he can, and that's great. And I encourage him to do so. But in a game like that, he need to realize faster, hey, Saquon, we need power running today. We're going to put a fullback in front of you, and we need power running.
See, this is the thing too, right? And this is another team that I don't think they should do anything. Washington. I don't know how I rewatched that game yesterday. I still don't know how they won. Like, I throw a pass up to Terry McLaurin. I'm like, oh man, that's picked. Gilmore's got that. No, McLaurin just go. He basically had the A.J. Brown mentality. Ball's coming my way. It's mine and nobody else's. And
right. So I'm glad you brought up Washington, because a lot of times I'm sitting here saying, who cares about Washington? But now
I barely care about them, and they're 4-4.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In the 4-4, they'd be tied for first place if they were in the NFC South. You know, I think that you got to stick with Taylor Heineke now, right?
Taylor Heineke's the guy. But like, do you make a move at the deadline? I don't think they should do anything.
I mean, no. And also, like, well, I was about to say, who's the last team to make a big splashy play at the trade deadline and it pays off for them? But I guess the Rams last year.
There are 2 examples: the Rams and the Cowboys with Amari Cooper recently. And you could say the Eagles with Jay Ajayi in 2017 too.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I feel like the trade deadline is a little overblown. Like, I do think it helps you. Like, a lot of teams, you acquire a player who you maybe could build around in the future. But a lot of times you end up at the trade deadline with a guy who's a rental, as I mentioned earlier, and then they hit free agency, and I don't know. I think it's a little overblown in terms of like, oh, the trade deadline. There's before trade deadline. There's a contenders before the trade deadline. There's a new set of contenders after the trade deadline. I really don't. You see more pretenders, maybe not pretenders, but like you see the teams that are like, okay, we can now 100% count out the, Packers if they were to trade away a major piece or something, like a team that's kind of like, what are they? They've been really underwhelming. Which direction are they going to go? Are they going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline? But that has more to do with how your mentality is from the GM perspective and less to do with like, oh, we finally, got that piece that we were needing. I feel like it's so rare that a team ends up with that missing piece. And even in the case of the Rams, like they got Odell, but it was right after that Robert Woods was hurt, right? Wasn't it?
Yeah, Robert Woods got hurt, and I'm like, okay, what are they going to do here? They're going to trust Van Jefferson, and Odell just kind of fell into their lap, really.
Right. So it was like, I'm not Odell is definitely better than Robert Woods, but I'm saying it was kind of like, okay, they lost a guy, so we pick up a guy. It wasn't like, oh, we just added another weapon, which they did, but they lost one too.
Yeah. See, this is the thing with me with the whole trade deadline. This is the type of year where I start to get annoyed by social media because when I post stats, oh, it's only 8 weeks in the season. Well, yeah, we're halfway done. Like, this is pretty much what your team is shaping up to be right now. That's the number one thing. Number two, people get so when you talk playoffs now. Oh, we're only 8 weeks. It's November now. We're past the deadline. It's right. This is time. It's I don't care about the Houston Texans right now. They're irrelevant. But the Washington Commanders, they're 4-4. They're right in the mix. They have a better record than the Packers and the Bucks right now.
I know. And that's an interesting thing too about Twitter. And I know that you do this very well, but you tweet stats that are pretty interesting. And you can tell, like you can just tweet a stat and then you can tell you're not saying anything other than the stat.
Exactly.
But like people will jump on you in the replies and say stuff that like they'll insinuate what you meant by sharing that stat.
Yeah, you're trying
to a degree.
I'm like, I'm not speaking anything. I'm just pointing out there. Like I heard all offseason Tua couldn't throw the deep ball, and I laughed at people. Well, guess what I put out yesterday? Tua's stats at 10+ air yard. Oh, by the way, he's the only quarterback to have over a 60% completion rate. You know who Tua is? Jalen Hurts. It's kind of funny how the narrative, it's a narrative. It literally that's all it is.
I agree. And I think that narrative is shifting on Jalen Hurts after the game he had this week. You can't say anymore like, oh, the Bills have Josh Allen or the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes. Like,
there.
I get it.
He's right
there.
It
may not look the same, but dude, you got to put Jalen Hurts in that category now. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, dude. Yeah. Plus what he does running the ball.
It's funny. It's funny. Last week I would have said, and I did say it. Well, the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and Bills have Josh Allen. Jalen Hurts is really good, but he's not them. Well, this you can say it. He's there. He's right there with those guys. Jalen Hurts to me is probably my pick for MVP right now. That's how crazy.
I don't know how you could pick anyone other than him, given his individual success and the team success, which is I do think should factor into it.
If you want to go by the best player on the best team in football is Jalen Hurts.
Yes, that's true. And I'll say this though. There still is one scenario, one situation that I have not seen Jalen Hurts in this year, and that's okay. What happens when the Eagles are down?
Yep.
They need him to. Other than I guess you could say the
second half all year. They haven't.
You could say maybe the first half of the Jaguars game, but like when will there be a game? Will there be a game in the regular season in the second half where the Eagles are trailing and they need Jalen Hurts to bail them out with his arm? Like, I think that's always been the kind of ace in the hole for the Jalen Hurts detractors is that, well, we all know he can't do that. So Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen are better. And it's like, well, no, there's something to be said about a quarterback who doesn't trail in the first place. Like, don't get me wrong. As a big Eli Manning fan, like I'm a big fourth quarter comebacks stat guy.
Yeah, you're the king of that.
Right. But there's also a reason why, Tom Brady didn't have as many fourth quarter comebacks because, he
They're
wasn't
ahead all
in
the
the
time.
fourth quarter a lot,
Yeah. That's what irks me when people say that. Well, Jalen Hurts kind of did have that come to Jesus drive, if you will. When the Cardinals tied it up, he led the Eagles right down the field and had the big third down, played the Dallas Goddard. Like, yeah, it was a game tie. Yes, but yeah, it's funny. Jalen Hurts doesn't have 4-4 comeback this year. Well, no, he doesn't because they're winning all the time. Like,
yeah,
part of the stat. Like, Daniel Jones is fine, but the Giants are trailing all the time.
Yeah. It's not a great team stat. It's a good quarterback stat, but it's not a great team stat. And then also you could point to things like, all right, what happened to the quarterback? How did they trail? With the quarterback getting sacks, was he throwing the ball to the other team? Was he fumbling it? That hasn't been the case this year with Daniel Jones, really. But I think that there's a lot of stats like that I won't say are misleading, but they're missing context. And yeah, man, I think that they're going to hold that against Jalen Hurts until we see it. I know you mentioned the Cardinals drive, but I think it's got to be a big game. Everyone, I don't think anyone was counting the Eagles out in that game. I think it was okay, the Cardinals came down and tied the game. But no one was like, all right, this game's over. The other team's going to win. And then Jalen Hurts pulls a rabbit out of his hat. I think that's what, unfortunately, because of the way he came into the league, second round pick behind Carson Wentz, kind of looked at as, not an NFL caliber starter, very good college quarterback. So he's had so much to overcome when it comes to his personal NFL narrative. Whereas, a lot of guys who are drafted early, I think Joe Burrow is the one to come to mind. And I know he went to the Super Bowl last year and had a great statistical season, but dude, to me, he's just they crowned him. They crowned him too early. I didn't think he looked good last night.
He's better than Patrick Mahomes. No, he's not. He's not.
In my eyes, he's Derek Carr. He is Derek Carr.
Oh, I like that. So this is what bothers me when people get on Jalen Hurts. I swear people watch Jalen Hurts once in their life that have that narrative. And it's the national championship game when everybody seems to care about college football. He got benched for Tua and Tua led him to win. I'm like, you guys know Jalen Hurts is really good that year.
Yeah, I believe he was SEC Offensive Player of the Year that year.
He was. And by the way, he's the reason why Alabama won a national championship the next year because he had to come in and play in the SEC championship game and won that game. And then he got better as a passer. I remember Jalen Hurts his freshman. I'm a big high school football nut. You know this. Jalen Hurts to me, I was like, man, if Jalen Hurts can just throw the football consistently, he's going to be so good. I loved him his freshman year at Bama. And that just wasn't part of his game yet, but you knew the mentality. You kept hearing the stories this guy's a gym rat. Steven Nelson just said this last night for the Houston Texans. He used to be on the Eagles. That guy's in the gym all the time. He's always working. He said, you can see why the Eagles are good because of him. It's that culture he brings. You want to be like him. And
the interesting juxtaposition. This is flipping back a week, but it might not have come out until after we talked, but there were two clips that came out last week after wins. There was the Giants after the win over the Jaguars. Did you see them trying to get Daniel Jones to give a speech?
Yes.
He was like, back to work, guys. And that's not who he is, which is fine. There's other ways you can lead, but then compare that to the same week, the Jalen Hurts speech that he gave in the locker room. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. I always listen to that. Usually you got to hear Jalen Hurts live at the press conference. I'll tell you what, that guy is never satisfied with anything.
Right. And that's what I think, that's a pure leader. That doesn't matter, where he is on the depth chart. It does not matter, the situation or what the narrative is around him. You can tell that guy puts in 110% work. He's all business, all the time. He's got nothing to hide. He's not self-conscious about anything, and he sees himself as a true natural born leader, which is what always was my selling point for Jalen Hurts. I don't care. I know that it matters in this league, in such a pass happy league. You got to be able to throw the ball. That's, step number one to play quarterback in the NFL. But I've always thought that if you don't have everything in one category, there's ways to make up for it in other categories. And Jalen Hurts, for me, it's his leadership and, just his determination and his mentality, man. He's like a different breed. And I think that, I don't know how you quantitatively make that case for MVP, but I don't think that the Eagles are 7-0 without him.
I agree. That's the thing. Like, he beat you with his legs. He was doing that earlier in the year, getting a lot of rushing touchdowns. Then I heard, he knows to throw the football. I'm like, last time I checked, 6 is 6. It don't matter how you get it. Oh, so what does he do this week? Well, let's be the first quarterback since 1969 in the Eagles franchise history to throw 4 touchdown passes to 25-plus yards. Yeah, so let's get rid of that narrative. And the guy's still saying he left food on the table. Like, he is – I tell people this. Like, you've seen the Rocky movies, right?
Yeah.
Well, you know how Apollo Creed, like, is really good, but he always has to tell you how good he is?
Yes.
Like, remember when he knocked him down, he's like, I told you. Jalen Hurts, he's not that guy. He's not going to tell you. He's just going to show you.
I agree. And also, I think, all this, doubt in the passing game, some of it's kind of disrespectful to the receiving core that the Eagles have too, like we're talking about AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, dude, I could throw 4 25-yard touchdown passes to AJ Brown if he's just going to Randy Moss everyone, just throw it up in the air, dude. But yeah, man, that's got to feel good to have a couple players like that on the outside. If you're Jalen Hurts or the Eagles, like those are just insane luxuries. And I've always thought AJ Brown was a really, really good player, but this year it's kind of always come in spurts with the Titans where I'd be like, oh, wow, look at that AJ Brown game. This year, like with the Eagles, just feels like, dude, he's there week in, week out, making plays. And then this week it was just, wow.
And you have a quarterback who's throwing them these passes on the money. Like the first touchdown pass is right where I sit in the press box. And I'm glad Brown admitted this because I initially think it was going to him. And Hurts throws it up. I'm like, oh, man, is that a nice pass? I said, and Brown's right there. Yeah, you got 2 guys on him. He made sure Minka Fitzpatrick didn't even sniff that ball. I'm like, how do you stop that? Like, this is Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. This is Patrick Mahomes, Tyreek Hill.
That's what I'm saying too. Like that does make it hard when I'm talking about flipping it back to the Giants. But like when we're talking about, Daniel Jones, we got to make a decision on him after this year. And how do you know what you have at quarterback if you don't give him the Stephon Diggs to the Josh Allen, the AJ Brown to the Jalen Hurts? You don't know what you entirely have. You're basing him off of Darius Slayton being his number 1 receiver after him not even playing to start the season. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard to judge.
I always tell people, you're a real football fan if you can name the top 4 wide receivers on the Giants.
I can't even do it, I don't think. But
this is what got me mad last year because the Jalen Hurts detractors were getting on him for that playoff loss in Tampa Bay. I'm like, dude, you guys know Quez Watkins. Like, he's a nice player. He's not a number 2. You guys realize this, right? No. I'm like, you know how many receiving yards Quez Watkins has this year? 80. Think about that. They don't need him to do anything.
Yeah. But he's made a handful of plays. Maybe not a lot.
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It's nice to have someone like that who's, there, and maybe you need him when you need him, as opposed to, okay, Darius Slayton, get out there, and now you have to drag the team down the field.
For me every week. It's hard. I don't think people realize that. Like, the Bills are so embarrassingly good at wide receiver. Like, Isaiah McKenzie is just open.
Yeah, that's true. The Bills, I will say, I'll give it to you there. I know I'm giving you a hard time making you trying to make you say the Eagles are the best team in the NFL, which they are. But I'll give it to you. The Bills have looked really good, and it's hard to make that case over them.
Hey, I'm a diehard Phillies fan. I'm having trouble. I'm just enjoying the ride right now. Everybody goes, well, why can't they beat the Astros? I said, well, I can give you 50 reasons why they can't, but I can also give you 50 reasons why they can. I can do that with the Eagles too.
I know you can.
See, here's the thing. And again, this is not the Eagles' fault, but the defense is really good. They have not faced Josh Allen. That's not their fault though. They're not going to face him. It's you face who's on the calendar. Kenny Pickett was on the calendar this week. They're going to dominate him. Davis Mills, he was on the calendar this week. They're going to dominate him. Taylor Heineke, the next good quarterback they face is Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers aren't good. So it's not their fault. I'm not that's the thing. I can't get into this until it actually happens because I thought for sure the Chiefs and the Bills, one of those two would represent the AFC in the Super Bowl last year, and Joe Burrow ended up being the guy. So.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. I think that the NFC is pretty wide open, and the Eagles are the team that looks.
Eagles are by far the best team in that conference. It's close.
I mean, wide open in terms of like the teams that were kind of dominating the last few years, the Bucks, the Rams, the Packers. They're not is wide open for the Eagles to take or another team. Probably the Eagles.
See, that's the thing. Like. I can't worry about who they're going to face in the Super Bowl. Here's the thing. This is what I try to tell fans. When you're good, this is who you compare yourself to. You compare yourself to the Chiefs. You compare yourself to the Bills. That's a good thing. Look, like they're like, why do we care about the Chiefs? Why do we care about the Bills? I'm like, because they're good. That's who you compare yourself to. We're not comparing the Eagles to the Cowboys because they're better.
I was a little nervous when that graphic went out last week. I was a little scared that people were going to be like, what are the Eagles playing the Bills and the Chiefs? What are we talking about here? And it's like, we're talking about a hypothetical Super Bowl matchup between either one of them.
I know who I thought that. Oh, hey, you know what? Last week, I'm talking about, look, the Giants are 6-1 and they're the 5 seed in their conference because the Eagles are really good.
Right.
So it's crazy, Kevin. Once again, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'll have to get you on your regular spot next Wednesday. I'm sure we got the comments booming here on how good the Eagles are and what they could possibly do at the trade. It's amazing how we went from trade deadline to how good the Eagles actually are.
Well, let's be honest, Jeff. Like the trade deadline is smoke. It's
we've known for years working the NFL.
Yeah,
it's much ado about that.
This is a busier one. This is one of the busier ones, so I won't slam it. But
you know what I think the busiest year was for us when we were back in our 24/7 days? The year the Eagles traded for a Giant.
Yeah, I do remember. That was an exciting one.
There were a couple moves that went, and you're like, oh, well, Jeff, you got that? I'm like, all right, I'm already on it. That was, and the year the Cowboys traded for Cooper too. It was a pretty.
Yeah, but it's usually just one move. It's one move or two moves.
Yeah, you're right. And the one move may have happened, Christian McCaffrey, and that happened.
Right.
So
I don't know if you'll get a bigger one than that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, good for the 49ers. Hey, you know what? We just mentioned the 49ers in this NFC conversation.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking, like, they have the same record as Washington, but they feel so much better than Washington.
Yeah, and it only took Kyle Shanahan a full week of practice with Christian McCaffrey to get him 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, and I feel like they did that on purpose.
Yeah, I think they did too. It's all right, Kevin. I'll talk to you next week, my man.
See ya.